Hey, it's T-Sauce, Maxwell here. Oil. We use it everywhere. But what exactly is oil? Well, the word oil itself comes from the Greek word eleon, which means olive oil, which comes from the Greek word...
This is so not true. We don't use that much oil.
I know, right? I mean, who's really concerned about oil? We have so much of it.
Hey guys, wanna order a couple dozen bagels? I'm pretty hungry right now.
Now, gentlemen. I wouldn't get that many.
What was that? Did you guys hear that?
What's that, your stomach, Armando?
No, I think it was probably some kind of omnipotent voice from above. Name's Steve or something.
I am Steve, the omnipotent voice from above. Well, really, I'm Steve's stomach, but details aside...
Told ya.
That doesn't really explain
Oil! Your bagels take so much oil.
That was rude.
Oil! You use it everywhere, especially you guys. Hence why I'm tied to you mortal scum in the first place. Did you know those bagels you were about to order took a lot of oil to make and transport?
Nah, man, that's impossible. Oil is only used in lawnmowers and such. Why would they put that in food?
It is possible, actually. It starts with the fertilizers, which they themselves are sometimes based around petroleum, though nowadays not usually. The most common are nitrogen and potassium fertilizers. Anyways, the crop from these is transported by a huge amount of trucks. The yearly cost in 2012 to transport this grain was roughly $61,263,244,000. That's almost as high as Bill Gates' net worth. Once it makes it to the factory, it's processed, put in plastic packaging, which originates from oil, and once again is ready for transport. 75,810 gallons of oil are used in a single day to transport bagels. That's enough to fill over 800,000 water bottles, not to mention the amount of oil used in the making of...
We don't use that much oil.
Oh boy, I don't think you're getting it. Let me take you guys on a walk to show you that all sorts of things use oil, not just... lawnmowers.
But we are too lazy to get off the couch.
Why on earth would we move? The couch is the comfiest spot ever.
You guys really need help. Okay now, let's take a look into how much oil we've consumed so far. Look at all of those cars down there. Do you know how much oil it takes to keep those cars going?
As far as I know, cars use gas, not oil.
And how much education did you get in school? This is going to be impossible. Well, Armando, where do you think the gas comes from? And I don't want to hear that it comes from trees.
I think that...
Well, does it come from oil?
Yes, precisely. In fact, it takes more oil to make less gas, about 2 gallons of oil to make 1 gallon of gasoline.
Wow, I guess that's a lot of oil.
Well, what does cars using oil have to do with anything? Does that even matter?
Ah, I'm glad you brought that up. Over 1 million gallons of oil are used by cars each day. That's enough to fill over 1,000 dump trucks. And imagine the oil it would take to transport the oil. Anyways, don't get too jolted. Car emission releases carbon into the atmosphere. This affects the carbon cycle severely. Now, the carbon cycle is a delicate balance in which plants take in carbon dioxide to perform photosynthesis, and the animals consume the plant. Through respiration of both plants and animals, carbon again enters the atmosphere. The decayed material will, after an extremely long time, go into the ground and could become a form of fossil fuel. When we burn fossil fuels in industry and cars and such, it releases CO2 into the atmosphere that isn't in the original cycle, and so it usually just sits there. This sitting there causes heat waves to get trapped in the lower atmosphere, causing the phenomenon known as global warming. This causes such happenings as droughts, such as the one in California right now. This also causes the melting of ice caps, which brings the ecosystem of all that area into partial ruins. Speaking of ecosystems, I might mention that as we drill for oil, we ruin the ecosystem around us, especially with the offshore rigging. The amount of different organisms in the world make up its biodiversity, which is extremely important. The ecosystems are a dense system of connections between species, where if one species is removed, the entire system suffers from it, and if major enough, can be put on the edge of collapse. This dense ball of ecosystem is really determined just by the actions of all the organisms within the ecosystem. You can't remove a single species from an ecosystem without having extreme issues. When we have our industrialized and agricultural foods, this takes a large amount of space for humans alone, and can cause huge impact issues on the local ecosystem, especially the industrial pollution. If a chemical gets into a river, a plant could take that water in and get that chemical, then to be eaten by another animal, which also gets that chemical. Then eventually the food chain from there on, and so many other things, end up unhealthy due to the crap we spilled in there. An example of this is oil spills. I'm sure you've heard of those, especially the Gulf one. Pretty great. Those are disastrous and can cause extreme issues with the local ecosystem due to massive amounts of deaths because everything is covered in oil, causing for anything that needs the food to ingest oil or not have the food. Everything dies, basically.
Wow, I had no idea. I wish I would have listened better in science class.
Wow, bro, do you even science?
Could you please describe the process from oil to usable gasoline?
So we get the raw crude into our facility, and the first thing we do is fractionate. We break the crude oil down into various components. The naphtha we take up to our sister plant in Evanston, and then they take our light naphtha and blend it down into gasoline.
Do you have any current efforts of reducing your emission to your facility?
Absolutely.
Thank you for letting us do this interview.
You bet.
What is your opinion on how oil consumption affects our society, and is it in a positive or negative way?
There's probably positive and negative aspects. It's really improved the quality of life in society dramatically in the last 100 years.
If we stopped oil production completely and just switched over to like plant waste for biodiesel and like other alternative fuels, how do you think that would affect our society? Like in a really good way or in like a bad way?
First of all, I don't believe you could because there isn't enough biomaterial. A lot of the data shows that those biofuels, whether it be corn turned into diesel or some of the other types of bio, aren't very efficient. You know, for example, you might get 1 gallon of diesel, but it might take 3/4 of a gallon of diesel to actually produce that 1 gallon.
Though this is extremely important to the local economy, at the same time it releases a large amount of pollutants in the air, causing in the winter for what is known as inversion, when all these pollutants get stuck and block things from leaving. The amount of smog generated by Utah Valley gets stuck there and the population is forced to breathe it.
Man, look at all the oil we use. That's where it all goes.
Actually, you are extremely incorrect. A large amount of our oil is used in the productions of plastics. This plastic makes up almost everything we use. China is the #1 creator of plastics, but I won't even go into how much oil it takes to freight all of the cheap plastic over. This plastic is used in such items as packaging and bagels. Keyboards are used in writing certain scripts. Pull-down projector screens for projectors, which are also made of plastics. Basically, any factory-produced consumer product you can think of,
Wow, dummy. What are you talking about? Plastic doesn't have oil in it.
We just had it explained! Ugh, you're hopeless.
Come on, man. Were you even paying attention?
I was. I just didn't get all the science he was talking about.
How did you even get past high school? And what did all that ecology stuff that he was talking extremely fast about have to do with us?
No need to get back on old topics, Armando, but it might be noted that we need all the organisms to help control other organisms. If all the wild animals die due to our use of oil and our pollution and the carbon and I all breathe and have to die and such, the plants would overrun everything without much to stop them except us humans. We also need those plants to produce oxygen, so we don't want to see them gone either. We basically shouldn't randomly wreck things.
Your ecology really impresses me, sire, but what does it all have to do with oil again?
I already said the things about drilling killing the environment! Ugh. Can you guys not hear me or something?
Actually, not very well. Overall, the random statistics displayed on the screen, they're just so distracting. Now, not to get distracted again, but how did we even get oil originally?
That's just a question I totally wasn't scripted to answer in this part, Armando. This all started in 347 AD in China.
Let's just finish and get out as soon as possible.
Jump forward past all the use of oil for lamps and such in, medieval times and stuff like that.
So, voice guy, what can we do about this oil?
Yeah, and why should we do anything about it?
Well, you see, if we keep on using oil at our rate, our oil supply is projected to last only another 25 years. If we keep that up, we're not about to just suddenly switch to sustainability after those 25 years. there will be fighting if it isn't gradually taken down. The first step you can take is actually powering down your 60 neon signs I saw. Seriously, a rough 30% of the power in the US comes from natural gas, and you use it to power neon signs inside the house! That's even a fire hazard! And those 30 bagels, try more like 3. Another thing you can do is buy locally grown crops.
Bye.
Were you guys even listening?
Yeah, at first, but then you just kinda started annoyingly rambling for a long time and we got bored.
But did you still learn something, or were you desperate to get away from me?
Well, I learned that we use too much oil, I think.
I learned that cars use oil.
Yes, I know. Those were obvious. Dig a little bit deeper.
I learned that maybe it isn't a good idea to run 60 neon signs. We really need that oil for later. It is important that we reserve it. I also learned that I'm the only one that actually knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I guess.
Now, I know I'm just a capital, but please, just don't unplug me. Just...